Yeah, it's now there. Okay. Okay, so as I wanted to say at this for this slide, that since we became very dependent on data, and we can collect data from everywhere. When you go back in time, or even today, some marketing research companies, when they want to understand the behavior of certain consumer on behalf of retailer, for instance, they usually design questionnaire. Sometimes it's a hard copy, and a team of maybe researchers or a specialist, they go to the location itself and asking, definitely following certain ethical rules and regulations set by whether the government or by the retailer itself, to conduct this research and ask consumers about some point of behavior and how they behave inside this retail location. So that was actually, yeah, it's still being used currently. But after you finish this exercise, the researchers go back to their office and they start to enter the data in certain database in certain format. I don't think this method, it's, yeah, you can see it's not anymore being used often. Now everyone is using some third-party platforms like Google Form or SurveyMonkey, or even hundreds of platforms. And even Microsoft has its own, where you can use, you can develop your own form and send it to whoever you think is able to answer your questions. Data can be entered, in this case, automatically to a spreadsheet or database, where you can do some analysis, and then from this analysis you can come up with different opinion. In the end, doing this kind of exercise, collecting data, whether through forms and so on, the problem of sending form over the internet or social network, you assume that everyone is connected to the internet, and you only get the voice of people who are connected. The next question is, what you're going to do with the people who are not always connected to the internet? You are missing out their opinion, and it's up to them. They don't want to be connected to the internet. But basically, when you collect data about people connected to the internet only, you are ignoring totally a segment, maybe important segment in part of the world and part of your country. Could be very important for retail to understand the consumer behavior, but you happen to use the internet. In this case, it's basically, it's not the best option. So, okay, so hand was raised and disappeared immediately. So I don't know what you wanted, but I will pretend that you wanted to try the option. Nowadays, we can know if the customer is happy or not, how the customer behave. It's basically through sensors or through some devices that can be installed in different part of the service provider, and we call them IoT, Internet of Things. And as you know, from, yeah, probably you heard about it, you read about it, even on social network, people post a lot of interesting articles about different topics, and one of them, you heard about it and you know it, IoT, Internet of Things. Internet of Things is basically, you install your sensors somewhere, and the data will be transferred from this device through the internet to a certain cloud server, where you can do more and more analysis. So you can imagine that you can, even in the in-store, you don't need anymore to ask people about their behavior inside the store. You can only just use the IoT in order to capture this kind of behavior. Of course, you have to tell every consumer that they are being watched. Otherwise, you are violating certain ethical issues related to privacy. So you need to do that, even if during a certain time, maybe you install it for a certain time in order to collect data, and you don't need to put them all time inside the retail location. But this kind of getting this behavior, it's much more accurate, and it doesn't rely on perception of people, because if you are using questionnaire or using survey, you are asking people about their perception, and perception is very subjective, not objective. However, when you are monitoring behavior of people through IoT, you are objectively capturing their behavior in different forms. And once you get this huge amount of data, we call it later on as big data, you can't really use the normal simple tools to analyze the data in this form and volume. You need to use more sophisticated techniques, and nowadays everyone is talking about artificial intelligence. And inside the artificial intelligence, there are very well-known algorithms under certain category. We call it machine learning, because artificial intelligence is much more bigger and wider than just machine learning. Machine learning is part of it, and even deep learning is part of machine learning. So they are nested inside each other. The bigger umbrella is artificial intelligence. Machine learning is underneath artificial intelligence, and deep learning is subset of machine learning. If all of them being used, or actually deep learning in this case, if you use it in order to analyze this big data, and big data is not about the volume. Big data is also about the speed of collecting the data. We don't get the data every month or every week. We get data maybe every second or even millisecond. It depends on the mechanism and the mechanics of collecting the data. So the data is not even static. The data is changing every period of time, and then for that reason we call it big data. Big data is not only about volume and speed of collection, but also or speed of change. It's also the nature of data. We get sometimes different types of data inside our data that we have, data structure, I mean. Some of them, they are purely text, some of them purely quantitative, some of them they look like video and audio, so it could be also images. So big data is not only a database that is a structure. Big data is structure as well as unstructured data. So you can see big data brings us a very challenging exercise when we deal with it, and definitely you can understand using simple techniques are not relevant because we need to focus on much more sophisticated techniques that artificial intelligence offers to us. You can see this IoT concept has been there for many years, and even more than maybe 60, 70 years at the time when artificial intelligence came to our life. You can imagine that artificial intelligence became a term that everyone is using today, and they think it's a new term. It's not. It's 70 years old. IoT was not used as a term in the past, but because internet wasn't there, but we were talking about machines and the machine-to-machine discussion, not machine-to-internet. So we were, as all all academic world, like universities and research centers, they were ready for today. 50 years ago, 40 years ago, the human being was ready for today with the algorithm. But because of the data at that time was not available, and we had to struggle to get the data, nowadays the use of internet and IoT and more, the data became available, so the techniques are not new. So I just wanted to let you know that techniques are not new at all, and only the nature of data became new for us. And now we grab the relevant techniques, which is the machine learning, artificial intelligence, and so on. Now you can see that our homes now, especially the new one, even the older one, can still install some of the IoT. You can buy them and install them inside the home, but nowadays in new cities development, they intentionally in their development and their design and architecture, they include the idea of IoT a lot inside the home, and that's why they call it smart home. I think in next 10 years you will not see the word smart anymore because we write the term smart home and smart city to differentiate between the old and the new one. but in the future you will only hear home and city uh, without really preceding them with the word smart, because everything will be definitely and connected to the internet. So why we should use the smart term anymore? So homes and cities will be equipped with a lot of IoT concept. There are cities in infrastructure like utilities, like transportation system. Every infrastructure will be connected uh, to the internet to control everything, even automatically without even intervention from a human being. What does it mean? It means the decision making will not even need human to always to be there to make decisions. We are going to make only decisions when the machines are not equipped yet to make decision on its own. But for simple decision, we might really ask the machines to take decision without coming back to us. For instance, if you have building facility management and the light can be switched off when you check multiple things, like if people are there, if anything happens over there, you switch on off. So machines can do that for us without really, with simple rules, right? The cities as well, the lighting and installed in all streets, it can even existing nowadays in most cities. You don't need a human being to switch off, switch on. Now it's being implemented easily. But we're not talking about simple stuff like that. Sometimes we have to be more creative. And this is a very interesting era where everything is available around us. Then our mind needs to start to think about what else we can develop in order to make use of this idea of IoT and artificial intelligence. The ideas coming every now and then very quick. You can see the industry 4.0 and blockchains, cryptocurrency, and even more coming along with the presence and the development and advancement of every technology we have. So that means you guys living in this era in 2022 with this kind of availability of tools and concept, your mind could be very ready to think of the unthinkable with creating new ideas when you use different tools here. So this is very important that we are living in the data world. We are living in data-driven world. Everything will be driven by our data. Okay, so next, starting from this slide as well, I'm going to, before starting talking about decision-making process, we need to know first, since you're studying under the umbrella of business administration, we need to know, as you will be working in a company, whether you will be an onboard employee or already manager, or people report to you or you report to people, then you need to understand what's going on there. I'm sure you guys got some introductory courses about management sometimes, so my course is not about management. It's just to refresh your mind about different points related to management. So in the next couple of slides, I'm going to spend some time to refresh your mind about what management is and what are the basic functions and process in management. If you look at the very definition of management, is the science and art of getting people together to accomplish desired goals and objectives by coordinating and integrating all available resources efficiently and effectively. I think this is a very interesting definition for management term, but definitely if you Google it, you will find maybe 100 definitions coming from the best practice. I like that because it combines two very important points here. It's science and art, because people think that it's all about art, and when you ask people managing certain business, they don't really believe in science. And when we say science, we mean education. We mean people learn, like you guys. You are now here sitting, coming to Canada and sitting here to listen to us as professors. We try to teach you the science, not the art. I cannot teach you the art, right? How can I do that? I can only talk about my art, but I cannot teach you my art. You're going to build your art while you go, with using your experience, your own way of thinking. But science is standard. It's objective. Art is subjective. Science is objective. So we try. That's why you need to equip yourself with both of them. So that's why you are here today, to see what science can tell us, and you can shape it using your art in order to coordinate and integrate different resources inside your company in an efficient and effective way to reach a certain desired goal. What does it mean? It means, guys, if we all rely on science, let me say it in very simple wording, if we are a couple of people, we use science, since science is an objective, so we will only have one path, because science will give us only one path. When it comes to effectiveness and efficiency, science will give us only one path, right? But why? Is it good to have science only to give us only one path? Maybe yes, but if science gives us only one path, why people still do different actions? It's because of the art. Each one of us has totally different art for the same track. So that means we might really reach the same conclusion, the same objective, the same goals using science, but definitely shaped by our art. For that reason, sometimes we miss the science objective, and we don't reach our goal because our art was not accurate enough. So sometimes this mix between science and art are very, very important. But to be honest, you cannot really rely on your art at this stage. Your art is going to be changing every now and then when you are faced by new challenges. Anyways, now I understand the management is two things here. So management as well has certain processes included inside the management. It includes planning, decision making, organizing, leading, motivating, and controlling. Again, I'm not going to talk about each one separately, but the term is easy to understand. When you plan, organize, lead, decision making, and so on. So controlling and so on. So those are the main processes inside the management, where every management team has to go through this kind of processes. Another topic that's related to that, which is very, very important, it's a very wider spectrum when we talk about it, is called business ecosystem. Very, very important concept. While you are, as an organization, working in a certain market, you have to understand that you are not alone. You are not the only player in the market. You are not the only operator in the market. There are competitors. You have your customers, but you might be also a supplier. You might be a distributor. You might be a government agency. You might communicate with customer agency, government agency, and so on and so forth. So when you look at the bigger picture here, and maybe the next slide is even more visual, when you see that inside, you see here 3 circles, the core business inside it, this is your core business. So that means you have your direct suppliers or core contributors, or distribution. You have your own distribution channel. So you have your own suppliers, and you have your distribution channel as a retailer. So it's basically, you can see that this is your business. However, you are not alone, because you are surrounded by another layer and boundaries. We call it the extended enterprise. That means you are not alone. You are dealing with other circle here. And these circles could be multiple suppliers. And you might be also, you need not, as a supplier, you might be relying on different players, but also as a distributor, maybe your customer are different. So you might play the different roles. You might be an organization, but you might be a supplier for another organization. And even if you have a client, maybe your client is government, maybe your client is end user, maybe your client is B2B. So you can see there are extended enterprise. You are not alone. And the last circle, which is basically comprises the full picture of business ecosystem that you are dealing with trade associations, you are not alone. You need to bound yourself by certain regulations that coming from maybe international treaties or maybe national regulations. So, and some laws and some other financial issues like tax, like laws, like privacy. There are a lot of things here, and human rights and customer rights. There are a lot of things here connected. The point for this slide is what? It's basically to understand that ecosystem is coming from the word. It's how the system is connected to each other. Customer is part of it. Consumer, end user is part of it. We, as end user, we are part of the ecosystem. You guys, you are part of the education ecosystem. So imagine that we don't have students, the whole system collapses. Imagine that we have students, but we don't have teachers, the system collapses. Imagine that we have teacher and student, but we don't have people to run the administration and to manage this process, the system collapse. You can understand that it's for our favor that everyone survive, even competitors. We need competitors in a bigger picture to survive, because if they don't survive, the market will die and the whole system will collapse. So we have to be, we consider and to be considerable when it comes to competition. Competition doesn't mean you get rid of your competitors. Competition means, yeah, you have to be decent in that form, and decent means you win and let someone else win. Maybe you want to win more, which makes sense, but that doesn't mean you win and let others lose. This is not the spirit of the ecosystem. Ecosystem is very, very interesting example for how we have all together understand that each one of us plays a very important and essential role that will guarantee and ensure the surviving of our system. So this is very important to understand why we need to be acquainted with every single thing in our business. This is another point that I want to share with you, is the support business functions. In each organization, especially the bigger one, the larger one, they more or less have exactly the same business functions that are very clear, and sometimes they are very big units inside this kind of large corporations. But for small and medium, you might really not find them so explicit. They might be merged together in different departments. And even for a very small and micro level, you find one person does all of these things at once, or few people do the same thing here. So anyways, those are fundamental support business functions that they have to be there in any shape, whether done by one person or done by many people, it doesn't matter. But there is no organization can survive without having these functions. You can think about, for instance, retail, like Amazon, for instance. Amazon definitely is one of the biggest retail online business that we know, have one of the strongest logistic and distribution functions, and everyone can understand that. But they need to do a lot of marketing and sales for the portfolio of product that they have. So there should be dedicated units for that. But you can imagine Amazon, the lifeblood of Amazon, and the heart and the mind of Amazon is all about data. So they need a lot of technology. So again, they need department. When I say department in Amazon, of course, departments with the plural things here, because it's not one unit. They even underneath this umbrella, they have probably hundreds of subunits that does each one does something different, but all together are integrated. Administration and management function inside Amazon for hiring and maybe for people management, and as well as for more financial issues, they are related to this units. Engineering and related technical services, definitely Amazon as a retailer, definitely they need some engineering concept, because from every now and then you can see Amazon is coming up with totally different product. And nowadays Amazon is not only retailer, right? Amazon even position itself as a technology company and innovation company. They are now working in the cloud business. They are not only retail. You don't remember that because you guys, you were not still born or in life when Amazon started. When Amazon started, as you probably knew that from a lot of posts on the internet or listening to people, they started as a bookstore, right? Virtual, and they were trying to compete against physical existence bookstore, and the famous one at that time was called Barnes and Noble in US. It was a very famous one, and Borders as well. They were very famous, interesting bookstores. You like always to go there. I happened to visit the US several times while Amazon started to come up, and I visit a lot of these kind of bookstores. You cannot imagine the beauty of this kind of experience you get when you go inside bookstore. You get a book, you read it, you sit in a side chair in a certain corner, and you might really listen to background music. It's a fantastic experience, but at that time you need to go there to buy your books. They didn't offer any virtual or any online delivery. But people like that. But when Amazon wanted to actually compete against this kind of business model and to offer their own model. And the rest is history, right, for Amazon. Then Amazon expanded its portfolio to go out from the bookstore to every single thing. And you can see Amazon not only selling their own, rely on their product, they opened up their architecture of technology to let other third party to sell their own product and so on. So you can imagine the evolution of Amazon is a fantastic example of how engineering and related technical service, including the research and development department, they can come together to think of the future, how they're going to really survive. So Amazon is a fantastic case. Nowadays you can look at Netflix is another fantastic case, and so on and so forth. So basically, you can see a lot of functions. They have to be there in order to help their company to survive in the future. Next, functions of management. We talked about that in one of the slides before. They have the same things here: planning, staffing, controlling, and so on. You can see each one. I tried really to give you a little bit of description, the meaning of each one, but I'm going to focus on planning as an example. So planning, as you can see, even if it's like zooming inside planning, and you can find what could be the other tasks that we need to focus on when it comes to planning. And you can see in front of you here multiple subtasks underneath planning that you need to do in order to complete the exercise and the function of planning. But you can see decision making is clearly one of them. So decision making, again, since the topic of our course is about decision making, I'm trying only to zoom in on decision making exercise and action inside each function in business. So you can see the importance of decision making, and I don't need to stress on this point because you understand the importance of this point. One of the most important studies that happened to be there a long time ago, and they are very, very important today as well, is done by Professor Mintzberg, who happened to give us or to classify or to structure the role of effective managers. When the professor put 10 roles in 3 categories, Mintzberg managed to call them interpersonal skills or roles, informational category, and decision category. And again, zooming in more into decision category is the most important part here to know why decision making is always a topic that in every discipline is taken care of. So you need, guys, to understand decision making is one of the most important skills you need to learn in any disciplines, whether you are studying business administration or studying environmental or social science. It doesn't matter. In the end, decision making has to be there in certain form. If you look at the interpersonal and information and decision role underneath each one, you have a couple of roles. For instance, interpersonal category, you will find the figurehead, leader, and liaison role, where you need to show your people that you are the figure as a leader, and you are effective and efficient in passing on your model to other people. So how to communicate with people, how to deal with them, with different type of people who are very tough to deal with people who are simple to deal with, how not to take people for granted. Yeah, to act as a leader. Again, you probably get a course about leadership sometimes, or change management, or human resource management. You will get more and more about that. And definitely in any course related to human resources, Mansberg is there forever. So you will get more and more insight about this topic when you go through this study sometime, or maybe you got it before. But again, in this course, I'm not really digging into each part in detailed form. I need just to go briefly. When you go to informational category, you will find three important roles as a monitor and disseminator and spokesperson. You see, it's informational, which means it's all about your sensor. It's about information. You need information before taking any action. And you don't hold the information at your position. You need to disseminate it. And you need also to talk on behalf of people, to defend them maybe, or to represent them in front of management, in front of maybe union or something like that. So monitor, you have to find your way to monitor. So maybe through dashboard, maybe tools, maybe talk to people. So you need to be aware. It's not by try to be stuck somewhere and you say, okay, I don't care about anything happening around me. I don't want to even know what's happening. I just focus on my job. This is not good enough. You need to be informed, because you will come to the situation where you have to make decision, like the last category here. How can you make decision without being informed? So being informed became mandatory before going to the next categories that has another four roles. How to be entrepreneur. An entrepreneur, we know that you need to make decisions without even relying on other stuff. You need to do it by yourself. To be disturbance handler, and or in another word is crisis management. When you get your company or your department will be exposed to certain crises like COVID, what are you going to do with that? Or maybe if even in the outside of the COVID space, what are you going to do when you have crisis, like maybe internet is going down for your company? What are you going to do with this, and so on? So how are you going to deal with this? Or suddenly customer or rumors on Facebook or any social media talking about your business in negative way. What are you going to do with this? So this kind of disturbance for your business, how are you going to deal with this? This is a decision. You have to take decisions, take actions. You cannot wait and watch and to be like any other person. So to be successful manager and effective manager, you need to have this kind of skills and role, and you have to play them in a very well manner. A resource allocator, again, you will be always under in a situation where, in order to achieve certain goals or to achieve certain target or whatever, you will have resources. Resources could be financial resources, could be non-financial resources, could be human resources. How are you going to do this? How are you going to allocate this? You have to have criteria, you have to have mechanisms, you have to have tools in order to help you to allocate any resources in effective and optimal manner. Negotiator is the fourth role that Mainsberg has put inside this decisional category, where you're going to negotiate. How are you going to negotiate with other parties? You might renegotiate with internal people like management, maybe the board, the CEOs. If you are the CEO, you will be negotiate with the board, and probably you also can negotiate with external people like your supplier, the vendors. When you buy a certain technology, or maybe clients, if your business is B2B, or if you are a distributor, you're going to negotiate some deals, whether you buy technology or sell product and so on and so forth, or maybe negotiation around you buy a company or go to some market. So there are a lot of exercise here. You need to be very ready for that. This is, as you can see, they are all decisional role here, and you can find in the next slide more about each one. Yeah, I thought to share it with you here, so I'm not going really to go here. Now we come to the very important, another important part, which is related to our course here. I want really to focus on that. But before going on for this slide, I will stop for only a few seconds. If anyone has question, you can raise your hand virtually, and then I will ask you to go ahead. Otherwise, I'm gonna go ahead and continue my slides. So I give you 5 seconds. So if I don't see any hand raised or any question on the chat, then it looks like it's a sign for me to go ahead and continue my discussion. Okay. Okay, try guys to be more involved and more engaged with me here, because it's not nice to wake up in the morning on Thursday at 9. You'd attend the class at 9 to listen to me in one way. Otherwise, it will be boring. And you might really say, okay, if it's recorded, I will look at it in the evening. So why should I really participate? So you need really to be careful here. We are living in virtual life now. It's very tough, not only on you, but on us as an instructor, because we don't know at all whether you are with us or you are doing something else. Okay. So try to be part of the solution of our problem now, and don't be part of the problem, right? Okay, guys, try to be engaged. Any question? Anything you need to challenge me here? Or maybe you want me to repeat something? Try anything. Choose one of them. Or combo. Maybe combo question. I want all of them. Okay. Okay, so pretend that you are understanding what I'm saying, which I have no enough evidence for that, but I have to do this. Okay, now I'm going to share with you the 5 steps of decision making. You might really say, why there are 5, right? It doesn't need always to be 5. If you read some other sources, they might really share with you 10 steps, or maybe 2 steps or 3 steps. I don't know. But to be honest, all steps, all processes that you will find, they will come to the same pattern. Let us say what you see in front of you, let us call them pattern or template or generic concept that some of other sources actually, or references, they might really break down each one into smaller steps or sub-steps. For that reason, you find them, they are 10, not 5. It's okay, but in the end, on the very bigger picture, in the broad sense, you will find this 5 for sure. Whether they are named the same labels or maybe renamed differently, again, it's not our important point here. The important point is the way of thinking, and that's what I told you at the beginning. The thinking process is very, very important to do that. So imagine that the first step, definitely, before making decision, what you're going to do, it's basically to identify your goal. What's the goal that you want to achieve? Sometimes you need to have the voice of your stakeholders, and you can see here the points say the more likely, the more stakeholders you have, the more likely your goals are going to be misaligned. Why? Because each one might of the stakeholder redirect your thought into different directions based on their own understanding and perception. But that doesn't mean you will not get the voice of stakeholder. And here, stakeholder, I call them the experts. Because you might really take decision in a shortcut. You don't need to go through all 5 steps to take decision or to follow the process in order to take decision. Sometimes you might really find the solutions immediately. For instance, if I come to you and say that I know that you are very well informed about every single thing related to screen. If I want to buy a screen for my computer, extra screen, second screen, for instance, something like that. So what I'm going to do, right? yeah, I might go through, if I don't know anyone knows anything about screen, then I'm going to do the job by myself. But maybe I ask someone. I know that I knew about you that you are always concerned about screen and you did your own job about screens. So you are the best to ask. So I might come to you. For me, you are the stakeholder because you are expert in this field. Then I'm going to ask you, maybe you are friends or maybe one of your family member, and I'll tell you, yeah, look, I want to buy a screen. What do you think the best screen to buy? You might really tell me, look, there are 2, 3 screens here, and I do my homework, and I think you have to only think about these 2 or 3 screens because this feature, because of that things and advantage and disadvantage. You tell me, look, this is it. So then I might really take your words, and then I say, okay, I trust you as a stakeholder. This is enough for me. And I might take decision at this part. So I don't need to go through all of them, although you will see later on that we went through them, but in a short, in like shortcut, in computer, in Excel or Word. Sometimes you have to go through menu, but sometimes the shortcut you can do. Actually, the shortcut is go through the same menu, but very quick. That's why we call it shortcut. In decision making, we have to go through the 5 steps anyways, even if we do at any stage shortcut, because we go through them. So let's say pretend that we don't have enough stakeholder, and maybe we got some stakeholder, and each stakeholder here, my friends, they tell me, look, from my experience, this brand is good, and this model is brand A is good. Someone is going to tell me, yeah, look, for me, A is not the best, B is the best, and so on. So this is what you do in the second step, gathering information. Gathering information it's a kind of, yeah, which course of action I need to take. And my course of action is to buy a screen. But I don't know, but the decision is not buy or not to buy. I know that I need one anyways, but my course of action is which one. So now you see, you have to define at the beginning whether it's about buy or not to buy, or I buy anyways, and I don't know which action, or in this case, which screen to buy. So let us pretend that we know that our identification of the goal is we are going to buy a screen, but we don't know which screen to be bought. In this case, I need to go to the second step, is to get the information. If I don't know anyone, what you're going to do? You're going to go to search on internet probably and Google, maybe, Amazon, maybe some other player in the market. There are a lot of blogs and YouTubes talking about which screen you need to do. So to need to buy. Then this is your gathering process. So I might really go and read about different types of screens. And I find out, oh, now a screen is not about just buying the brand. Each brand has different options, and each option has different attributes. Oh, screen has size. Oh, screen has resolutions. Screen has frequency. Screen has this and that. Oh, I need to build to evaluate. So evaluation of which screen to be bought, I have to build what I call it like a criteria. This criteria will include these attributes. And the attributes that I'm going to use is screen size, the frequency of the screens, even the time of refresh the screens in millisecond, for instance, and the resolution, number of the breadths and widths of the resolutions, and even price is one of them. So and so on and so forth. You will find a lot of platforms giving you even the criteria. The question is, we need to evaluate, which means we need to give maybe score, we give weight for each attribute. For instance, for me, it's important the size, for instance. Then I give the size more weight. So if I have 3 options, then it looks like if I have 24-inch or 32-inch or 28 or 27-inch as a size, or even 17 inches, then I will say, okay, based on my space and my office, I don't need more than 27-inch. Okay, this is, and anything else is big, or 24 is enough. Then I give weight for 24, and anything else I will give less weight. But then later on, I will say, okay, not only the size, I give also the second weight or priorities for the resolutions. Then any resolution, high resolution, I will give more weight, and so on. So you can see there is always evaluation mechanism. We have to know that, and we have to do this. After the exercise of the evaluation, I will come to my choice. Aha, I know now brand C is the best option based on the score. Then I'm going to buy brand C. I'm going to buy it, and then I will, you think the decision finished. No, the decision needs to be evaluated. After I bought my screen with brand C, I need to use it, and then I should maybe share my evaluation and review on this brand on the internet. Or maybe if I don't like it, maybe I take it back to the seller. And or maybe if anyone later on asks me about this brand scene, maybe I say, yeah, this is fantastic brand or not. Or maybe if I, in the future, for another 4 or 5 years, when I go through the same exercise, I will never buy C anymore, or I will always buy C. So evaluation at the end became very, very important and very instrumental and integral part of the decision process. So you can see, even if you ask what your friend, which brand I need to buy, and your brand tells you you have to buy C, the brand C immediately. You think you didn't go through the 5 steps. If you go ahead and buy brand C based on recommendation of your friend, you think you didn't do that. Actually, you did, but in a very short term. So I hope you understand that, and you find next slide is basically more or less explaining the process. I'm not going to repeat myself here because it says the same thing here, pros and cons and so on. So this is, I'm not going to say other things. But again, the screen was a very personal issue, but you can go through the same process when you decide for your business. Maybe buy technology, and maybe you want to have your company, if your company wants to invest in a collaborative platform inside the company to enhance the collaboration among different employees instead of emails. So out there, you find a lot of platforms that can help any company that their employees can get integrated and engage and cooperate with each other inside the company. So you might say, okay, yeah, why not use Google Workspace, Google Meet, or including the whole combo of Google Workspace, like Google Meet, Google Chat, and so on and so forth, and emails. Or you might say, no, let us go ahead with Microsoft. Microsoft has Teams, has SharePoints, has all kind of Office. So let us do it because Teams also is a very nice collaborative platform. Or maybe a third party, not Microsoft, not Google, like Slack. Slack, it's another, maybe it's another one. And more, you'll find more and more platforms that could help any company to use in order to enhance the collaboration and the communication among different employees. The question is, which one? Now we go back to the question, define the problem. But the problem is, should we really have our own? Maybe we build our own. We have the IT team, and it's populated with a lot of developers, very good people in software development. Why not to build our own and customize our own? So it's another decision. So the question is, should we subscribe to one of the already existing platform, or we build it by our own? There are pros and cons. Or we decide to go to the third party and decide on one of the 3, Slack, Teams, or Google. Then you can ask yourself the question, which one is better than the other one? It depends on what we need. There will be criteria, there will be pros and cons, advantage and disadvantage, and so on and so forth, until you reach the conclusion by saying, according to our evaluation process and so on, we decided to go with maybe Slack, something like that. Then you're going to subscribe for Slack. Slack is another interesting, I'm not saying Slack, but I'm saying it could be an option in this exercise. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead for the next slide here. I'm gonna give you another 10 minutes after I finish this slide for another break, and then we come back to conclude our techniques here. The next topic that I want to talk to you is what I discussed previously. It looks like more or less related to informational issues. We don't really collect raw data, and sometimes we need to use tools. When you go back to the 5 steps, you will always see a box or steps called evaluation, especially evaluation in the middle. After you come to the options and gathering information, you come to the evaluation and scoring point. You always wonder, should I build my own scoring algorithm or scoring system, or there are scoring system or techniques or tools somewhere I can use. There are always scoring techniques to help you to score and come to a certain number where the final number will tell you what to do. It depends, in fact, on in which area you are dealing with, whether in finance or in operations or maybe strategy or maybe in some other disciplines, marketing. So you can see I'm going to share with you after the break the first 10 techniques, but again in nutshell, not in details, but just to give you a glimpse of each one and when to use what. But then the rest of the course. So that's why I call it 10 plus 1. So I'm going to discuss with you the 10 techniques today, as I mentioned briefly. But number 11, which is the core of our course, is called statistics. This will be the very big chunk of our discussion here. So I'm going to stop here now. I'm going to give you 10 minutes break. And then when you come back, I'm going to go ahead to discuss with you the 10 techniques. So I'm going to pause the things here and come back after 10 minutes, okay? This one. Okay, so hopefully you're back now, and let's continue our discussion. And my plan is to go through all these 10 techniques, again in nutshell or briefly, and then we see how it goes in the rest of the session. So you can go ahead and here see that there are, the first one that I'm going to talk about is basically the first one is marginal analysis. You will know that while we are talking about each topic here, that marginal analysis is one of the techniques that's being considered under the umbrella of economics. When you study economics, especially managerial economics, you will always find the author of any textbook talking about marginal analysis as a way to take some decisions. And again, it depends on what kind of decision you want to do and what you want to pursue, then use the relevant methodology. So if you are in a case that you want to see how by increasing the input, maybe our input is related to certain raw material, or maybe number of machines that we need to use, or maybe to allocate more workers in our facilities, whether we need to increase this input by 1 unit, the question always, what would I gain an extra output by allocating more machines or more workers or more raw material. So this is the mindset of any decision maker who are in this position, when they always ask, yeah, someone comes and say, yeah, we need to increase the number of workers. Okay, why? What if I increase by adding extra member in my facilities? What the extra output? We are actually producing 100 units now with 5 people. The question is, if I make this 5, 6, make them 6, this extra input, how much we're going to increase this 100 product, the output? How much output will increase? So is it 1 to 5, 1 to 7, or 1 to 1? Then we need to do that, because maybe by increasing by adding 1 worker, the cost will be high and the output will not bring me more benefit. So in this case, I might really not to increase my input by 1 person. Or what would happen if the question under investigation is about increasing or adding extra machine. Extra machine will cost us, let us say, $1,000. Would our output will increase in a way as an extra by adding this machine, and we are going to get more, and in this case we're going to get more benefit. So this kind of discussion, and if you have similar discussion, you immediately come to the situation by asking yourself, aha, now I need to go and use this marginal analysis techniques. Let us see how it works. Again, what I'm guys sharing with you here, it's more or less something could be simple, but the idea of this simplistic way of explanation is to give you an idea that this method can be used whenever you have question like that. If you are asked to increase your input, the question is, what is the marginal output that I'm gonna get if I increase my input by 1 machine? If you look at but it could get more complicated than that. That's why what you see in front of you is just a simple way, but it might really be more complicated. But again, you know, the method is called marginal analysis. And marginal analysis can be applied in different situations, but this is one of the simplest situations that you might really need to think about it. So if you think about this simple equation, change in the net benefit equals marginal benefits minus marginal costs. So you can see always we use the word marginal because it's margin, how much extra. Let us define marginal benefits here. It's known as marginal revenue. In this case, mostly the benefit will be quantified in terms of profit or even revenue in this case. Is the increase in total benefits, in this case, the increase of total revenue, as a result of change in the output of a good by 1 unit. The equation for marginal benefit is MR. If you look at on the right-hand side here, MR, it's marginal benefit. It's MR because it's a marginal revenue here. So the change in revenue versus the change in the controllable variable. Controllable variable in this case could be the variable that we increase by how many machines. If I increase my machine here from 5 machines to 7 machines, then the delta Q here is 2. But if I increase the number of workers from 6 workers to 7 workers, the change here is 1. So the question is, when I increase my input by only 1 extra unit, how much extra revenue I'm going to get here? So then I calculate that, and this delta symbol, it's a triangle, it's a symbol for indicating change. Now we need to know by involving new machine or increasing number of workers by 1, we're going to cost something, right? Nothing for free. Then this is the extra marginal cost that we're going to get by basically increasing the machines, because there are wages for people when we hire more workers, and machines as well has cost, maybe maintenance cost, maybe some other cost. So by doing this, you're going to have the 2 terms here for the upper equation here. And once you get the numbers in front of you, you as a manager and decision maker, you look at the change in net benefit. You might really say, okay, the net benefit, it's not worth it at all, because it's not about the cost. It's about managing more people. Instead of managing 5, now I have to manage 5, 6, or 7 people. And instead of maintaining 5 machines, I have to maintain 5 or 7 machines. So the benefit, maybe it's not worth it at all to increase. But if the benefit is worth it, then my decision is, yeah, let us buy the new machine. Let us hire 2 people. So you can see marginal analysis could be very beneficial here in many situations similar to the same situation here. But sometimes we are not really having this situation, and sometimes we don't have this kind of information available for us, but we might have some other information that's related to finance. And if you want to, for instance, you want to take you want to propose, for instance, inside your company, is to invest in a new technology for your company, because you see that your team needs certain platform to use in order to make their workflow easier and effective and efficient. Then you search back and forth, and you came up with the business case to the superior people, tell them, yeah, we need to buy that. The question for them will ask you, you ask them that you need budget for $10,000. Why you need $10,000? Yeah, because I want to buy or to subscribe in a certain platform. Okay. What will be the benefit of buying? In other words, what's the return? And this is an investment. It looks like expenses, but they are investment. But you will tell them, yeah, this 10,000, when I take them now and subscribe to this platform, my workflow will be more efficient, and the sales process will increase, and this $1,000 can be back to our finance in maybe 12 months. So that means this is the payback period that a lot of decision makers need to know before approving the 10,000. by asking this question: when are we going to get this money back? If the question is when we're going to get this money back, then you are using the payback period methods in financial analysis. It's all about financial analysis. So sometimes it's very, very crucial to do that. Sometimes as well, it's not only payback is the only question under investigation, maybe the cash flow. Sometimes it's okay to borrow money from bank or from investment, but the problem is not about when I'm going to get the money back. It's how the cash flow look like in our business. Its cash flow became very, very essential in many decision making, even if you are under debt. Why? Because you might really running a very simple business, like not simple, but it's a different business. I mean, convenience store. Convenience store. If you go inside any convenience store, you find out, oh my God, that these guys are running a very sophisticated business because they have products everywhere. But having a product everywhere doesn't make any good thing until you get cash. So the one who's running a convenience store will be very under pressure because the owner might have a lot of product everywhere, and you think when you go inside, wow, that's a fantastic business. Only fantastic business if you ask the person how does look like your cash flow. If the person is not getting much of cash, then the business is going to collapse soon, even if you have fantastic portfolio of products. So cash flow became very essential idea, concept and tools to be always used in order to make decisions. Should I really run this business or not, or to buy more product or not? Imagine that the owner wants to add more service like photograph or lottery issues, or maybe some other stuff. The question is, does it really bring me cash or not? Does it help in the cash health of my convenience store or not? So if you apply the same concept on small business like a convenience store, you can think that the same concept can be even applied and scale it up on very big corporations. All corporations, they think about, before making any decision, they always look at their cash flow. So cash flow and more analysis like that, financial analysis, as you can see, it can be, you might really think about some extra analysis here based on the input that you get. And you can see all inputs are for information. We don't call them data because someone has aggregated the total revenue here. Someone has aggregated the calculated the cost somewhere here and calculated the profit. So all numbers that you see in front of you for year 5 year, they are coming from somewhere else, and they are aggregated and consolidated numbers in form of information. So they are still information here. But you still can, from this information, you can build up another high-level information. We call it vertical analysis by calculating some ratios here, gross profit ratios, operating profit ratio, and so on and so forth. So still from 1 year, from income statement, you can calculate multiple ratios like that. And based on comparison exercise, to compare each number against certain cutoff point, you can always decide, my business is doing fine here or not. So, or maybe you look at this income statement for a business that you want to buy, or maybe a business that you want to buy their shares and stock market for stock market. So you might look at 1 year, but maybe 1 year is not enough. You might say, okay, let us look at 5 years. So now, instead of looking only at 1 year, now we look horizontal, how each ratio and how each of this information behaving over a certain period of time. Are they increasing? And the increasing means good, or increasing means bad. If it's cost and the expenses are increasing over time, it means this operation is not efficient, maybe. So sometimes you need to look at the same numbers over a certain time, which could be 5 years, 3 years, 10 years. but in the end, for the purpose of buying the company or buying the shares, or just to take internal decisions for your company, whether to introduce new product, to hire, buy new technology. So always you need this financial analysis in form of ratios. So income statement became very standard methodology being used a lot in many companies. To calculate the cash flow or cash in and out, you need to focus on your financial statement on three categories here. They are very well known and standard whenever you study. You are accountant or finance person, you always look at operating activities, investing activities, and financial activities. Each activities anchor some of the cost and some of the revenues. Some of them they are related to banks and investments, some of them they are related to operations, and some of them they are related to your financial internal process. In the end, based on this input, this information, you're going to come up with some other tools like financial ratios. This is another method. If your question is not about cash, and cash is not your problem to decide with, but it's important to be one of. If the payback period is not the relevant question, but the break-even analysis is important when you want to know how many products I need to produce in order to break even. If you want to introduce new product, and this new product introduction will cost you money in terms of marketing, in terms of advertising, in terms of production, all this kind of cost, operating costs and fixed costs, you always need to know, okay, when I know that I have to spend some money here, but how many products I need to sell in order or produce in order to break even. So this is a different question from cash. This is a different question from the payback period. It's definitely how many products we need to produce. So break even became very essential when you when you connect the number of production units, produced units, and maybe number of customers to hire. Imagine that you are building a website or platform, and this platform has subscriptions, and this is your business model. The question is, you're going to pay a lot of money or substantial money in developing this platform. So you have fixed costs because you are paying this amount for the developers, and also you pay money for operating costs, like where you're going to host your platform. So you have to pay money every now and then. The question is, okay, the business model that you are offering is by subscription. That means every person to use my service has to subscribe monthly, weekly, daily, annually. Then the question is, how many customers I need to have in order to break even my investment. So maybe 100, maybe 200, maybe 300, maybe 1,000, or what. So then you need to know how many subscriptions you need. So break-even analysis is one of the most interesting tools here. And you can see here a very simple formula again to help you calculate the number of units or number of subscriptions. So break-even points equals the fixed cost divided by the selling price, which in this case, the business model, the subscriptions, minus the variable cost. For each customer you get inside your platform, it's going to cost you money, because when you host your service, you pay money for each new user. So you know now how much the price you offer. For instance, let us say monthly, you want to have the subscription is $10 monthly, something like that. But you have to pay $1 for each subscriber to a third party hosting your business. So and now you know that you sell in 10, but the cost is $1. Yeah, it's good enough, but there are fixed costs. This fixed cost is the cost that you paid already, and you still pay by in development and maintenance of your software and so on. So by doing this, you can come up with spreadsheet like this. That what you see in front of you, it's a very simple break-even analysis technique here. where you have to calculate the fixed cost, and fixed cost can incorporate a lot of items and sub-items. Just for this simplicity and for the sake of explanation, we only incorporate only one item here, which may be the advertising. We need through online digital marketing. We're going to pay 1,000 on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on whatever platform. But there could be more and more input here to calculate the total fixed cost. Variable costs could include multiple items. It depends on the nature of service you are offering. And here there are maybe some commission. Maybe I ask some people to sell my product through their own website, and they ask me that they will get this percentage for each unit I sell. In the end, we're going to get the total amount. So it looks like I need to cover, to break even, I need to cover this cost, all my cost, using by trying, I need at least 100 subscriptions in order to break even all my cost, and anything else will be profit, right? This is a fantastic thing. If it looks like only 100 customers I need to subscribe to my business, and then the rest will be revenue, then the break-even method is a very good idea. You can see we covered now mostly three methods. They all are mostly financial methods, and even the next one, number 4, it's about ratio analysis. Also, ratio analysis and all these 4 methods. Ratio analysis, you can see here, as we discussed before, based on your income statement and financial statements, all financial statements. You can, from them, you can come up with standard ratios where you can have something like current ratio here. And this current ratio equals the current assets divided by current liability. This ratio, a lot of financial people, before making any decisions, like the board or the CEO, they always look at maybe when they want to buy a certain company or investor want to invest in your company, they look at the liquidity ratios. So this liquidity ratio can be easily calculated if you have the data, and the current asset and current liability, they are standard numbers, and they are standard information that you can always find them even public. So anyone wants to invest in your company, they will look at all of these kind of ratios or subset of them, and they are very standard. So, but sometimes some companies, in order to evaluate themselves, they just not only rely on standard ratios like this one, but they can build their own internal ratios. And they have to benchmark them. What I mean by benchmark? Benchmarking them, because in the end, calculating the ratio is not a really big deal, because if you have access to any financial statements, you can calculate the ratio, but the ratio in the end needs to be evaluated. This is good or bad, right? Is it good? Is it bad? So you need always to benchmark each ratio against a certain expected value. This expected value depends from market to market. If you are working in ICT market and fintech companies, or financial sector, or you are working in textile sector or automotive sector, the same current ratio is different from one sector to another. So the benchmark is different. So you, in order to take decisions using the financial ratios, you have to know the benchmark of each ratio, and they are well known as well, depending on which industry you're talking about. So far, the 4 ratios, that's in this case, the 4 methods, whether the financial analysis or the break-even analysis or cash flow ideas or ratio analysis here, or payback methods, all of them, or even marginal analysis, all of them, they rely on information. You need information always. And even the rest of the 10 will always need information. When it comes to data, we will have to use statistics, because as I mentioned before, statistics are very important techniques to turn and map or translate data into information that you see in front of you. So what you see in front of you, you need information. This information coming definitely from data. Someone is preparing this ratio based on data somewhere. So we need always to think about that. So what you see in front of you is a result. It's not just input. Finished with the financial ratios. If anyone has a question about the first 4 techniques, you can go ahead and ask me in the next 5 seconds. If there is no questions in the next 5 seconds, I will continue with number 5. Okay, so still, I hope you are there. Operation research techniques, it's, yeah, not many people know about that, but it's a very significant, and it's not only one technique, it's techniques. There might, if you are very, if you are aware with this field of operation research field has been there for 100 years. Again, if you go back 100 years, you'll find out operation research has been there. The only thing is it was very limited in application and mostly was used in during the war time, the World War I and World War II, because even in war you need to build your own techniques in order to take decisions. A lot of decisions needs to be taken, but operation research has been used at during that time. But later on, people share their knowledge with external communities, which is the industry. And since then, operation research have been used a lot as techniques in manufacturing in the era and in the booming era of the probably the third the third revolution of industry. Operation research became very mandatory. Operation research is where techniques that use science and logic to build mathematical models for each problem we face in manufacturing. In manufacturing, you need to make sure you are solving problem like you want to optimize the operations, or you want to optimize the maintenance of machines. So everything was related to machines, and at that time the manufacturing. So for that reason, operation research techniques boomed a lot, and the scientists in this field developed a lot of mathematical modeling, which helped a lot of decision makers to take decisions. So OR, it means operation research techniques, have been developed over the year, and the techniques are based on math. So one of the methods, maybe I share with you, it's one of, if you are interested to look at the throughput in this case, it means the output of a line of parallel machines, and you want to know what would be your output, because if you know the output of your machines, how many units you're going to produce, how many jobs you're going to finish, how many tasks you're going to accomplish, then if you know the revenue and the price of each task you produce, then you know your revenue, right? So it became very important to calculate the output of a certain operations. That's why they call it operation research. If you look at the bottom of this slide, you'll find it looks like a complicated equation, but if you look at it from the perspective, the meaning of each element here, or each coefficient or each term, you will see that it makes sense. Let's go up here and see what does it mean. But let us take an example. Imagine that you are running a shop that perform and offer printing services. Someone is going to send you per email some documents to be printed. Okay. Or copy. Printing now, or copy machines, the same, but all in one. But imagine it's all about printing, and you get inquiries and services from different customers, and you have 5 machines. So N is the number of printers, that you have, and it does a lot of things, and they are maybe different brand or different models. S be the speed of each station here, and the station means how many jobs per unit time. Imagine that the printer is good by printing 100 page in, let's say, in 1 minute. Okay, so you know that the speed, but maybe the speeds are different from one machine to another, right? So you might be having a Model A that prints 100 page in 1 minute, and another machine the same 100 but in 2 minutes. So this is the speed of each printer. Lambda here, it means the failure rate. Of course, the machine will not work forever, but you know, every maybe thousand, this will be bad. Every 100,000 paper printing page, the machine falls down or breaks. That is not a good sign, but it happens. So if you know this information, it will help you later on to know how frequent the machine is going to break. But not only the machine is breaking, information is important, also how long it takes to repair it. Maybe it needs 2 weeks or 1 month. So what are you going to do? In the end, to calculate the throughput, how many jobs we're going to finish per day, for instance, then you can use this equation to calculate how much of jobs you can finish per day, and in this case, you can know how much money you can make per day, and then you decide later on, based on this information, whether to hire people to help you, or maybe to buy a new machine, a new printer, or what. So this is, or you take on more jobs, or you don't take more jobs. So there are assumptions to use this simple equation. You see here the assumption the station have the same speed. It means even if the brands are different, at least you have to make sure to use this equation, because if the speed are not the same, then the equation will be different. This is one thing. Okay. Second is processing time cycle are constant. That means this time of the cycle of doing, where is it here? The processing time. That means it's, of course, you can divide the number of pages by the time you know the cycle. So it's the same thing here. Station failures are independent. That means machine A, when it fails, it doesn't depend on this machine B. It doesn't matter. Repair time are independent. That also, when you send them to the service provider or the vendor, they don't really tell you that it's the machine A repair is different from machine B, because they are dependent. So, but we can really help in maintaining these assumptions. Failure at one station stops the entire line. There are no buffer between stations. So if this situation, I don't know, maybe you are printing a book and each station does different things. So if these conditions happen to be fulfilled in your case, then you can use this equation. But if anything here change, the equation will change. That's why I'm saying it's very important in operation research to come to a point to know which equation we need, which mathematical model we need to use for our nature. So you need some assumptions and operation research is very rich in many equations like this that fits every situation. So you need to pick up the correct technique for your case. So this is also important to know that. This is one example. The second example that could be also related to operation research, it's called linear programming. Linear programming is one of the very famous techniques, can be used in another different situation. If you are not concerned about the throughput of machines, but you're concerned about certain mix of product. For instance, if you are offering services, and each service, you have 4 types of service: service A, service B, service C, service D. And you want to increase your portfolio, and you want to know what kind of services mix I need to offer. Or maybe you want to produce 4 products. We say, okay, I have 4 products to produce: product A, product B, product C, product D. And each product will bring you some revenue and some profit, and each product will cost you some money. The question is, what is the product mix that I need to produce? Because I might really produce all of them A, because A is the one that brings me more money. So it's easy decision here. If you say that when I produce product A brings me more revenue than anyone than B and C and D, then the decision is easy. Why not to produce all of them A? But the problem is we are not living in an unlimited resources. You will see that to produce A that will bring you more money, A needs more raw material than B and C. So that means you might really run out of raw material very quick, and you produce A. It's not unlimited. You have to be limited in terms of number. Then by selling only limited number of A, it doesn't really justify the cost of the raw material. Then it looks like the idea of producing only A is not a good idea. By looking only to revenue, you have to look at some constraints. And this is where linear programming comes in. When you have a situation you want to maximize profit or maybe minimize cost, and you want to decide on a certain mix of product or services that you want to offer, then you have some constraints, then linear programming is there to solve your problem. But linear programming is not only being used in the situation of product mix. It can be used for determining the optimal scale of operations. It can be used to manage your inventory. And it also can be used for a lot of situations where you have allocation of resources, especially when you have limited resources like time, people, finance, and so on, raw material, scheduling production facilities, or even scheduling flights. A lot of airlines, they use linear programming to schedule their flights, because they need to optimize a certain objective, like optimizing the waiting time or the consumption of fuel. There are always things to optimize within a certain constraints. So one example for applying linear regression is what you see in front of you here. It's basically a carpenter who wants to make decision. He has or she has her time, like maybe I have time to produce tables or chairs and chairs. But as a carpenter, I have limitation of raw material, and I have only maybe 40 labor, maybe low labor time, or maybe 40 people only. Let us say that it's 40 in terms of hours, maybe 40-hour labor, and I have 50 raw material only. So if this is my constraint and this is my resources in my inventory, I know also if I sell one table, I get $5. And if I sell one chair, I get $3. So if you don't have any constraints about raw material and labor, definitely 5 is better than 3. Then you might say, okay, if I allocate all my resources for only tables, then let us produce only tables. But the problem is each table needs 2 hours, but one chair need only 1 hour. Not only that, in terms of raw material, that one chair needs 2 units of raw material, and the table needs only 1 unit, because table is easier to produce. Chair needs to have a lot of waste because you have tiny details in chairs more than table. So in the end, you are constrained by multiple resources, but also the revenue for each one. So it became complicated and not easy decision. Linear programming can give you the answer, and the answer of linear programming tells you as a gardener, you need to produce 10 tables and 20 chairs based on your constraints. And by doing this, you're going to have the net profit optimized. That means you get the maximum profit by producing 10 tables and 20 chairs. By doing this, you will be able to make the best use of your resources. You can see here the situation could be more and more complicated if you add x3, x4, x5, and more constraints. Linear programming is a fantastic method. It's being used a lot to decide on how many products I need to produce. So this is the 6. I might really, in the future, I will show you how a linear programming method can be used. Even Excel can help us here. Let me go ahead and waiting line here. Waiting line method is, as you can really understand, that could be easily understood by saying the waiting line in a service provider. If you go to bank or go to somewhere else, even online, waiting line method, it's very important to optimize people frustration, because the longer you stay in any waiting line, even on a call center, you get more frustrated. So there are also information that you need to gather and collect, like arrival rate, how frequent people come to your service, service rate, how long it takes to serve one person. Based on these two information, you can calculate the average service time, the average time between arrivals, and based on the ratio of this information, you come to an interesting ratio called the ratio of total arrival rate to service rate for a single server. That means the question is, how many people I hire in my bank in order to serve my customers? So now I say, okay, I'm going to open 4 windows or 4 lanes or 5 lanes. Like actually in airport, how many, you can see people, sometimes you go to the airport, you see only 1 lane, and sometimes you see 4 or 5 lanes working for check-in and so on. Who decide that? How people decide that? They decide on this information. So you need to have this information to come up with the solution for how many people to hire, how many windows to open in this case. The same happens in many other situations. Okay, so this is the waiting line method. You can see so far each method is using information. Game theory is another fantastic, complicated method being used in economy, especially in economic courses, advanced courses. You will see part of the curriculum of any economic course advanced, you see game theory is part of it. Even in strategic management, the game theory, as the name suggests, it's a game where every player in the market will be operators. Like, imagine that you are 2 operators in the market, operator 1 and operator 2, and you know that there are 2 strategies and 2 business model. Strategy A, it's a business model A, and the strategy B is a business model B. And you as an operator, you don't know what is the next move of your competitor, operator 1. Also, operator 1 is thinking about strategy A, strategy B, whether they apply this business model or this business model. But if you know the details of how to apply game theory, you're going to come up with 4 quadrants if only 2 players with 2 business models. Then you can understand if you have multiple players and multiple strategies, then the matrix that you see in front of you will get complicated and not easy to visualize. But just for the sake of understanding how it works, you can see here as an operator number 2, if you say, if we go with them to the market with a strategy A, and our competitor also will introduce strategy A, then it looks like this is our payoff. This is what we're going to win. But if B and B, we lose together. But when we go mix, like here, A and B or B and A, there will be some losses and some wins. If you happen to, based on the given information, you build this matrix, you might say, okay, I'm going to go with B because in B I will win, and if they go with A, they will lose. And if they go with B, we both win. So it looks like strategy B became very essential here. So all these matrices or this quadrant will be populated with numbers and information. So you will be able to get what we call we call them, by the way, payoff, what gain you get if the players for each scenario. Sometimes it's being used in scenario planning and strategic management. That's why I'm saying it's here. Simulation is, you can imagine that simulation has been a very attractive methodology for a lot of businesses. Instead of, if you remember the 5-stage methods, when we said stage 4, you're going to implement your decision, and stage 5 is to evaluate. That means you can only know if your decision was good or bad. The only way to know is to implement and watch, right? So sometimes if the results are bad, then the cost is high, and you have to try again with different strategy or different intervention or different action. At this moment, you might cost you a lot of money and time. Simulation helps you a lot. Develop different scenarios, different options, and instead of try the options and the scenarios and the interventions physically and reality, where you need time to watch and time to implement and cost to implement, it's better to apply everything on computer. And that's why simulation became very, very attractive methodology, where you can simulate a customer buying your product. You can simulate the production line that you have inside your company. You can simulate a lot of things in your business, where you can build different scenarios and you try and you watch what's happening virtually. So years can be condensed into seconds or minutes. This is a fantastic methodology. There are a lot of methods and a lot of providers everywhere. They offer a lot of solutions. This is one of the solutions where basically you can build your own simulation. Sometimes the simulations are ready-made. You can buy them, customized to your business, or you maybe need to build your simulation from scratch. And there are a lot of software that helps you to build your own simulation. One of them is called System Dynamics, and this is one of them here. Last one before we finish today is called Decision Tree. Decision Tree is very popular when it comes to uncertainty situation, where we have a case here. For instance, you might really have a situation like this when you say, I want to expand my business. Here you have only two decisions: expand or not to expand. Okay, if we expand our business, that means we go to different market, or we build a new plant for our production. We have another two situations in the future. This is a futuristic situation. The future might be the economy. If the economy expand, and the probability that the economy will expand is 50%, based on information I have to get from wherever. So the most important information now is this 50%, because it could be 70%, it could be 10%. We need to get this probability anyway. So this is another information. But if the economic is going to expand, we're going to make a lot of profit here. We're going to make around $5 million profit. However, if we expand, the market will not expand, which has a possibility of 50%. We're going to lose $3 million here. So the decision became very tough here. So then we might really go to the next path. The next path, it says do nothing. By doing nothing, it means let's see what this do nothing will lead us to. So if the economy is going to boom and we did nothing, we are okay. We're going to make money, 2 million, but we lost almost 3 million. Why? Because we could have done profit 5 million here instead of 2, and it's profit, not revenue even. So that means we lost. We call it opportunity cost. That means we costed ourselves $3 million by not to expand. That's bad. But if you don't expand and the market is going down, we're going to lose 1 million. It's definitely better than 3 million loss. So now it's your decision. Should I expand or not to expand, and so on. So guys, I think I finished today the 10 methods. The method number 11 is the core of our course, which is descriptive analysis. We're going to spend good time to talk about in details the statistics during the whole course. The rest of these handouts, which will start next week with this more techniques and tools. I'm going to talk about them in nutshell as well, very quick. in next week. So if you don't have any question, I finished today. So I wish you a good time today and a good weekend coming soon, and to see you on next Thursday. I will make sure that the link on LMS next time to be valid one. If you don't have any question, you go ahead, ask me now. Otherwise, you are good to go. Yeah, go ahead. If you raise your hand, I think, or you wanted to leave, but you raise your hand. Okay, thank you guys. Take care of yourself.